Hi there, I'm Ezekiel Dasho, and today I'm going to draw this glass of water. I may do a few more water or, liquid and glass videos as we go along because they're so good for learning how to shade and draw, and they're really great exercises for practicing hand control and just working on all sorts of different things eh, with your personal technique. So I'll post a link to the photo in the description and we can just get started. So I chose this glass because it's relatively simple, and the first thing we're going to do, as always, is block the drawing out onto the paper. I'm going to start with the ellipse at the top, and it's a relatively pronounced ellipse with almost a pointed. There's sort of this pointed ellipse here. Forgetting what the name of that is right now. Oh, I should say I'm using a 4B pencil, and I'm just using that so that it picks up better on camera. And similar to the technique in my other videos, I'm drawing very lightly for this phase of the drawing, barely pressing down at all, just letting the weight of the pencil press down onto the paper, or just that's about as much pressure as I'm applying. So I'm looking now at the base of the glass, and I'm just dropping lines down from the top. And it looks to me like it's at the base of the glass there's a circle that's almost exactly the same as at the top. And it just bows out a little bit and then curves back in. So rather than just draw straight down, draw a guideline straight down, I'm going to, well, maybe we should just go ahead and do that. I'll just draw an imaginary guideline straight down, and the distance is, important for, if you're doing a bigger piece. But for right now, I think I'm just going to say, well, it's about twice or a little more than twice the distance of this. So if I imaginarily fold that down and then double that again, and then maybe just a hair longer than that, and that will get us into the ballpark. And now I'm not really seeing the back edge of the glass because of the refracted light and so forth, so I'm not going to worry about that right now. Really, I'm just doing this so that I can get the points to connect for the rest of the glass. So we've got this slight bowing shape, and then it curves back in there. And then for the purposes of a drawing, at this point, mine is a little bit different than the source photo. So what I'm going to do on my drawing is mirror my own drawing and not worry about copying from the source photo for this part, because I want my drawing to look relative to itself. And okay, so we're at about the halfway point. We've got this water line, and we see this relatively pronounced bits of shading here. So I want to leave part of that kind of white for now and just block in the main bits. Now I'm going to look for places that are dark in the picture. I see this dark line here and this dark line here near the edge, and then abruptly there is this curve of light here. I'm just going to block that off with some shading, and there we go. There's that ellipse, but it's just from a different perspective. And now we see some curvy, wavy kind of lines here, and some, like right here, look at this dark spot, and then kind of ribbon shaped. And just add a little bit of shading there. I'm really still pressing quite lightly. I'm not pressing very hard at all. And for this part, we'll shade up into the rim of the glass. And now it's a matter of really just looking, finding what you see. And, you know, there may be details that, some details may catch your eye more than others. And those are the ones that I think you're going to want to go ahead and accentuate. As you look at the object, other certain elements of those details may surface. And at that point, you know, hopefully your drawing is in a place where you can continue to accentuate those details too. So that's another reason to keep it light, especially at the beginning. So we've got almost this, I don't know how to describe it, the look of this thing, I guess chocolate ribbon kind of shape here. And it's then refracted at the bottom. There's a little bit of a hard edge. And the gradient is pretty stark. So like there's this dark line here, and then this dark strip here. And then the next one is, you know, like a few steps up in the grayscale. I suppose I should do a quick video about grayscale stuff so that people who are following me can see how I approach that stuff. But it's basically the thing about cross-hatching. So like this ribbon here would get like 2 shades. This one here would get like 3 or 4. Still not pressing hard, because I just want to coat the area on the paper with, you know, graphite dust. I don't want to like push in hard. Okay, so that kind of takes care of that portion. Now let's, on the other side, get the, what should we call this thing? This stripe blocked in, and the work is pretty much done for us because it's so dark near the edges. And one of the reasons I chose this picture is because I want to do, for these, you know, I'm not sure if I'm going to do them consecutively in videos, but as my channel goes along, I'm sure I will do more glasses of water and things like that. But this one is about as simple as a glass of water gets, and I really like that about it. You know, there's a lot to see, but you know, as we do more complex glasses of water, or, you know, things pouring into each other. So like if you're pouring water into a glass with ice cubes, you can already just, you know, obviously in your mind, that's going to just add layers and layers of complexity. And it's not so much it's the same principles. Everything's the same principle, you know, it's really only different in your mind kind of thing. But it is much more time consuming because there's so many more graphical elements to represent. And so I wanted to choose something from the outset that's a little more approachable for the beginner and a little less time consuming for the viewer. See this almost this dark strip of so we're shortly going to get to the end of this picture, and it feels like we haven't even really started yet. So now we start seeing like these places that are much lighter. So like on this side of the glass we see like this really light reflection. I'm just going to go in and shade it super lightly. You know, you could get a blender or something if you wanted to make it look really super smooth and glassy. You could use a Q-tip. You could, you know, use one of the fancier ones from the store. But I wouldn't recommend necessarily doing that until the end of the picture. Kind of do it in phases rather than piecemeal as you go. So we see these nice hot white spots, these bright spots. And these can kind of be like places in the eye almost where you really want to leave them be so that they stay bright white throughout the course of the picture. So in some of these reflective areas, see, we've got a bright white spot up here too, and it's kind of a little bit angled away from the other one. Kind of shade that in a little bit. And let's keep identifying these broad areas that we can use to keep moving the picture along. And let's see, around the bend of the glass, this area where it's bending, you can see at the top arc of the bend there's like a little bit of shading there. That's just sort of a function of the curvature of the glass. There's also, you know, here we can block in these areas where we will not go past the part of the glass that we've just blocked in so that we get some brighter whites there. And we can go ahead and block in some of those other bright spots too, so as we go we just know where the boundaries are, so to speak. And I'm sort of accentuating these for the purposes of the video. I want them to pick up on camera. But I might be a little more sensitive about how I do that if I was doing this for like a big standalone piece or something like that, or as part of a bigger piece. I'm seeing like these three maybe darker areas here, and the one in the middle doesn't go all the way to the top, but the ones on the side kind of look like they do. And you may see these things a little bit differently too. It's like sometimes it's just a for instance, if you're much younger than I am, your eyes are probably better. If, there are differences in the way people key into the visual elements in their environment, and those can be a function of so many different things. So if your picture's looking a little different, it's totally fine, and I wouldn't stress about it. I would just keep rolling and enjoy those differences. And the principles are what really matter. The way that you hold your pencil, and the way that you approach building up the picture. And getting close to the end, and so these spots here, when I'm darkening them up even more, might accentuate the darkness there, and there's like this weird little curvy swoop there. And these little features of the refracting light and contrasting darkness are sort of what this is all about, and will really help sell the realism of the picture. But they're kind of fun because they're pretty abstract looking areas too, so they let you kind of enjoy the abstract nature of reality. So one of the things that glass is so beautiful is just all the different forms we see in it naturally. And so I want to go through here and get some of this shaded in so that it's not flat white. And same with this area here. I might come at it from a different angle so it's more suggestive of the back of the glass and the curve. And there are some variations in there too, so I don't want to make it just a flat hit of white or anything like that, or light gray rather. Okay. Now we see let's just do a little bit of the table here before we finish this up, but we see on the table the reflection of the glass, and there's some of the shadow too, so let's get a little of this shadow in here, and right underneath the glass too. And let's get this shadow off to the side where it is in the picture. And there's this, shape that mirrors almost the glass above. And let's just drop it down to about there. Now, again, you have a situation where if you wanted, you could go and block in, or rather draw boundaries around the brightest spots so that we don't accidentally infringe on brightness, keeping those spots really bright will definitely help the picture have the contrast, the punch that it has in the photograph. And let's see here, we've got this bright spot and then kind of like another set of bright spots. And so, we see like the studio lighting or whatever, the track lighting or whatever they were using to get this photo. There's a lot of lights being reflected in the and then we've got this wood grain on the table, which I think it's good to put some of that in there so that it's right over the reflective stuff that we just did. And it'll help the reflection sort of drop back into the surface of the table there. Some of the areas that are a little darker and some are. So yeah, that's basically the gist of this one. That's the thrust of this one. I can go over and like right next to the brighter areas kind of add some darkness. The idea being that will just accentuate the brightness. So these areas, this definitely shouldn't be bright white here. Oh, and I almost forgot. So I highly recommend, if you're going to leave any areas like bright white, just have it be those shines where the light was hitting. And the rest, make sure you've got some tone on it, even if it's just the absolute lightest you can possibly draw. That way, like the light will look like light, and everything else will look like it's glass. I started this picture with a relatively sharp pencil, and I'm glad I did. It's got a lot of areas on it that benefit from having a sort of sharper edge that you can use to accentuate, especially these smaller areas here. So like this area here, this benefits from a sharp edge. And now that I've got this far, I just want to keep checking and seeing if there are any areas that just look too weird. Also, I'm trying to describe exactly like what I'm looking for. I'm like just always like going through and trying to bring what I see closer to what's real. And so like this dark line next to it, I see, I don't know, this darker kind of shade, and then it gets a little lighter, and then a little lighter, and then here it starts to get shadier again. keep these lighter areas, but I don't want them to be so light that they look like they're standing out from the glass. Like I want them to look, like they've got the continuity that the glass naturally has. So this part's a little less dark, but there is still that. And as you go, your image will start to look glassier and glassier. And that's one of the fun things about drawing the glass is like, it's really good for textures and just seeing things and working within abstraction. Like, such a nice paradoxical thing to draw because it's very real, but the reflecting light and the bendiness of the glass and all that stuff make it so abstract too. And let's see, so there's a little bit of, these aren't exactly straight lines here. There's a little bit of waviness due to the texture of the table. A little bit of straightness there. And almost a little bit of continuity all the way up to this area here. But maybe bring this in a little more here. And maybe darken some of this a little bit. There's like these little squiggly areas of darkness. And then getting into this area here, let's see, this is pretty dark here, this edge of this dark area. And that like almost black line is almost unbroken, but there are little areas where it's darker, so I don't recommend just drawing a thick black line there. And this gets a little bendy. Ooh. In this area here, this shiny bendiness, that looks important. These little bendy areas can make all the difference. It's sort of like when you draw an eye and you get the lighting in it right and you get the size right, and people look at your picture and they don't care what the rest of it looks like. They're just like, oh, that looks amazing. Wow, good job. They don't even look at the rest of the picture. They just see the eyes and their brain just switches off and says, oh, that looks beautiful. Done analyzing it. It's good. I've judged it already. Their subconscious mind tells them. So, I mean, it's nice to, like, with those little squiggles and stuff in there, if you get some of that going on, I mean, you don't invent them, you see them, and then you want to represent them. But, by the way, when I say you, I'm saying I. But that should be pretty obvious. But anyway, so you get the idea. You get the idea. There are these like elements within the drawing that if you nail them, the people just check out and they say, done. I'm done analyzing it and judging it. I judged it as good and I'm not changing my mind. Art is weird like that. They make people are, we make snap judgments visually, and there's nothing wrong with that necessarily. I mean, it's probably an evolved mechanism of defense in the wild. Like, we make snap judgments about what we see because we need to know, if they're going to trigger our fight or flight response or whatever. I don't know. I'm just theorizing and sort of just mumbling here. But back to the drawing. Yeah, I mean, it's just this process, and you can go on, depending on how much time you want to put into it, and go on and on and on with refining it. And just, be wary of overworking your paper, and be mindful of where the lights are. And that will get you, hopefully to the place you want to be. And so thanks for participating in this exercise with me. And I hope you liked it. And I'm going to do as many videos as I can over the next week or so, but it probably, it's for people who are following me a little more closely. It probably won't be very many because I have, a lot going on socially in the next week. And so I don't know how much I'm going to be able to post video-wise, like if I'm going to find the time to get the videos made. I'm going to do my best to make some. But until that next time I see you, peace.